Okay, so hopefully you've had a lot of different ideas that you've gotten today about ways that you can set some goals for yourself related to health, and also ways that you can role model healthy behaviors for your students. I'm really excited for you to set foot on this new journey, whatever it is for you. And we're going to get started with a little cooking demonstration. This is going to be pretty simple. I'm just going to show you several different methods of cooking, and you will hopefully get some new ideas, some fresh ideas to get started for yourself. So I'm going to start by washing my hands, which you should always do before you start cooking. And they tell you that you should wash for about 20 seconds to make sure to get all of the germs off. Make sure you get your wrists as well, and try to get under your fingernails. Wash them really good in between as well. I'm using a clean towel here to dry my hands off. But I just went to the farmer's market yesterday, and I picked out just kind of a variety of a selection that they had out there from different farmers, and I'm going to be using several of the same vegetables in different types of methods, different types of recipes, so you'll kind of get a sense for how to use one different item in a couple of different ways, hopefully. So just a quick overview of what I have. I've got some different tomatoes. These are all heirloom varieties. I've got some fresh blueberries from the farmer's market. I've got a variety of peppers. This one's not rotten, it's just a purple pepper. These are all sweet bell peppers that I have. And then some different summer squashes. So zucchini and then yellow summer squash. And then I also have some kale. At the time that I'm filming this, it's mid-July, and so kale is kind of on its way out, but I was excited to get a little bit to show some different recipes with you today. Some cucumbers and some carrots. I've got some onions grown locally, and then some potatoes as well. Again, it's mid-July, so the potatoes aren't full size, but they are kind of fun to get this way at times too. And I'll show you some different ways of preparing those. So we're going to start with talking about roasting vegetables, and so I've already got the oven preheated. When I roast vegetables, usually somewhere between 350 and 450. I put it right at 400 today. We're going to roast some potatoes, sweet potatoes, and some summer squash. So we'll get kind of a mixed variety, and I'm just going to show you that method, and it will be pretty easy to replicate with whatever vegetables you have around. So I'm going to start with some potatoes, and these, again, since they're so little, I'm just going to go ahead and cut them right in half, and that'll be a pretty good bite-sized piece. When you are roasting veggies, you want to make sure that they are all kind of the same size pieces. So this was a little bit bigger of a potato, so I'll cut it into thirds, because you want to make sure that they're going to cook evenly. Oops. Lost a potato there. Okay, so I'm going to just put all of the items that I'm going to roast into a bowl, and that way I can coat them all with a little bit of oil and a few seasonings before I go ahead and put them on the baking sheet. Next I'm going to do a sweet potato. I'm not going to use the whole thing, but I'm going to cut off that end there. The earlier part of my video, I had talked about having a compost pile ready to go, and I do have that here, so I'm just going to make sure to keep putting my ends and maybe little bad pieces in there. I'm going to make some small circles. There's a lot of ways that you can cut a sweet potato. Some people cut it in half first, and then they have sort of a flat surface that they can flip it over and cut with. I'm just going to cut a little bit off of this, so I'm just going to do some rounds, and then sort of stack them and make some small pieces just like this, same size as the potato again. Some different wedges. And just kind of keep them close and cut them all at once. Okay. And then I'm going to choose to do this zucchini squash, and hopefully that'll give us some fun variety in our roast. And zucchini, since it's not as dense as the potato, it's going to cook a little bit faster, or it won't take as long to cook it, so it becomes tender, because it already is pretty tender. So I'm going to kind of keep the chunks a little bit larger for zucchini. And then when I finally go to put everything in the oven, I do want to make sure that it's coated a little bit with some oil, and you can use a variety of different oils. I'm going to use coconut oil today, but olive oil will also work. And then you can just season it however you would really like to. There's so many different types of seasonings you might put on. So here's our kind of summer roast medley, and again, I could add so many different things to this. I love to roast beets, I like to roast carrots, cabbage, and there's a number of things that you could do. You could roast, if you ever have tomatoes, the cherry variety, you could roast those, and they're really nice to eat. Okay, so I'm going to add a bit of oil and seasoning to my roast mixture. I'm using coconut oil, as I said, so I'm going to just scoop a little bit out of this jar, and I'll mix it in so it coats all of them. I like to use coconut oil because of the health benefits, but also I just really love the taste of coconut oil. Maybe you have a different oil preference. Just try to stick to some of the healthier oils. Olive oil is always a great option. Canola oil is a good option as well. And you don't need too much, so just get just enough, and then just kind of coat all of the vegetables with it. It's also totally okay to use your hands. That's what they're for. Whatever is best for you, and you've already cleaned your hands, so just make sure they stay clean throughout the whole process of cooking. And then I'm going to add just a few seasonings. I've got some salt, and I've got some different herbs. This is some oregano from my garden that I grew and then dried, so I'm going to add a little bit of that. And just a little sprinkle of that, and I'm just going to also add a touch of black pepper. Black pepper is always good. And then a bit of this sea salt. And not too much salt. The vegetables already have a lot of good flavor on their own, so you don't need too much salt, but a little bit can really zing it up. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. I'm going to add this to the baking tray. And just make sure that when I'm laying it out, it's all going to be laid out nice and flat, so that nothing is on top of anything else. It can really cook evenly. Okay, so now it's ready to go in the oven. And I'll just kind of keep an eye on that as we're going here. Okay, and now my hands are a little oily, so I'll just wash it. Okay, so now that's cooking, the thing that will take the next longest is going to be our soup. So when I make a soup, really I just kind of use whatever's around, whatever's available in the refrigerator. So today I'm going to add some onions and some potatoes. I'm going to throw in some kale and some carrots and probably a little bit of zucchini squash and some peppers too. So to make a soup, you probably want to start out with the onion, and you're going to saute that a little bit with the garlic. And so I have those ready, and that's going to be kind of step one. We'll get this, so we have that as an example. Alright, so I'm going to peel off the outer skin of the onion. Sometimes it's easier to get started with the cut first, and then easier to peel the skin. I really love purple onions, they're my favorite, but you can use any kind of onion in this soup. The reason that you want to saute them for a little bit first is because they cook best with a little bit of oil, and when they have some time to cook on their own, they get nice and translucent, and you can kind of see through them a little bit, and that's when the sweetness really comes out. So that's kind of best practices for onions. And I'm gonna just make sure that your fingers are back when you're cutting these. And there's a lot of science and experiments that have been done on best ways not to cry while cutting an onion, but this one's not hurting my eyes so far, so hopefully it won't. I have heard that if you put them in the refrigerator before you cook with them, that you have less of a chance of it irritating your eyes too bad. So, okay, all of those are cut into slices, and I'm just going to go through and chop them small. And then chop them the other way so there's a nice dice to them. Don't want a super big bite of onion in my soup, maybe you do in yours, but just gonna make them nice and small so that every bite has a little bit in it. I'm gonna toss these here in the stock pot. And for my soup, I'm going to use some olive oil, so I don't need too much, but just enough to kind of cover the onions a little bit and get started on sauteing those. Just want to make sure they're all nice and even in there, and we'll get them started. Okay. I'm going to just put that at medium heat, and we will just kind of keep an eye on that. And they'll start to kind of sizzle, so I can keep going while those are cooking. We'll add some garlic to it. I'm just going to do 2 cloves. Garlic can be pretty strong depending on the clove that you get, but I really love the taste of garlic, so I usually don't mind too much. And I tend to add garlic to about everything, because it's such a good natural flavoring. I'm using the back of my knife to kind of help peel it a little bit. I just press with the knife on top of the garlic clove, and that helps the skin kind of pop off really easily, so you don't have to sit there and peel it and get all the garlic stuck in your fingernails. Again, putting all my scraps into the compost. And then I'm just going to mince this really small. I'm keeping my fingers out of the way. It might not look like that from the video, but I'm sort of pinching the garlic clove from the outside. And now just making it into really small minces. If you have a garlic press, obviously now would be the time to use it. That would make it a little bit easier and would get less all over your fingers and fingernails. If you used a garlic clove, but a knife also works just fine. And I will check on these onions. This might be, yeah, they need a little bit longer before I'll add the garlic in. So garlic and onion first, and then I'm just going to add a little bit of of broth that I have, and also we'll add in some of the other vegetables and kind of stir fry all the vegetables first and then add in the broth later and just let them simmer for a little while, as long as we have here. A lot of times the longer you cook a soup, the better it will come out, and sometimes a soup is even better the second day after all the flavors have gotten a chance to marinate together. So leftover soup is really great, and if you have leftover, ends of, I think I have over here, like an end of a cucumber or something. I probably would put a cucumber in soup because it's so watery, but you could use the, whatever you have left over of different items and can toss those into a soup. So lots of different things that you can do. Next I'm going to make some slices of carrot to add to our soup mix. And I'm just going to cut these in half and then make some nice chunks of carrot. And I'm not worrying too much about their size at all. And again, this isn't really following any kind of recipe. I'm just sort of showing you the method, and of course there's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of great soup recipes out there, even ones that would follow, the vegetables that you have. So look around and there's tons. The onions are starting to sizzle. I'm going to add in the garlic here. Let those flavors kind of start to marinate together. I wish you could smell it. It smells really good. Add in these carrots here. If I was doing this for myself a little bit slower, I would probably wait on adding those carrots in, but I do want you to be able to see the finished product once we're done today. So I'm going to add in a little bit of zucchini, just chopped it long ways, and then into little bits again, and it'll give us a nice chunk for our soup. You might prefer a smaller bite, and that would be easy to do also. Okay. And this process, you'll see in a moment, is very similar to the process of making a stir fry or a saute. So you'll see how similar those are. I'm just going to add a few onions, or some potatoes here. More over here. Okay, this is going to be a good little soup. Make sure to give that a stir. You want to kind of constantly have your eye on that so that it doesn't, on the saute, so that it doesn't stick to the bottom of the pan. You're going to have some kind of long flakes in your soup maybe. I do want to add some greens to the soup as well. That will be fun. And when you're cutting greens, you can just kind of take, this is kale again, so you can just sort of pull the stem and pull the leaf away from the stem. And the stems are certainly edible. They're just a little tougher. They take longer to cook. So since we're cooking everything kind of at the same time, I'll remove the stems today. All right. And then go ahead and chop that up, just kind of whatever size that you want it. It could be real small, it could be bigger chunks. A little little brown piece in there, so I'm going to pull that out. Okay. I'll add that on in. And I might do part of a pepper in there too, for fun. Okay. Just kind of clear out all those seeds in there. So just tap it off. Perfect. And I'll just make some good chunk sizes. Okay. So we've got a good little mixture in here for our soup. I'm going to soon add the broth in. The broth can also just be water that you season. Here's what it's looking like so far. And I'm going to add in some broth that I've already made. I was mentioning earlier in the video that you can kind of collect some different compost scraps in the freezer, and you can make those into broth just by putting them into a stock pot just like this and adding all those scraps with some water, and then maybe a little salt and some seasonings, and then you can just store that in the fridge or the freezer for a little while, and you can come back to that and use it when you're ready to make some soup. So I'm going to grab some of that in the refrigerator. I have it in kind of a big container that I just pull out when I'm ready to use it. Okay. So I'll add that in. It'll start to cooking. It's smelling really good already. So if I ever need to, I'm just going to add a little bit more water to it. I will do some seasonings. I'm just going to start with some herbs and some salt so far. Just give it some time to cook in there with all of the seasonings. I'm not really measuring, I'm just sort of sprinkling in just a little bit of each thing. And as you get to cooking more and more, you'll kind of know when you have the right amount in there, and encourage you to just keep tasting as you go. I always cook with several spoons available so I can take a little taste. I think I want to add just a little more water, and it might cook down some, but that is good and okay. Just so it's all covered. So we've got our soup going. I'll check on these vegetables again. They're roasting well. They're not done yet, but I can sort of start to check with a fork to make sure that they're tender. And I can see that they're not quite done because I'm kind of looking for a little bit of a golden brown on mine. I like them to be a little golden brown and then nice and soft through. You can cook them for longer so that they get a little crunchy. So we'll just keep checking on those and see how they go. Next, I would like to make a little sauté. So we're going to kind of use the same method that we did for the soup, but a sauté is a great way that you can add some fun spices. You can sort of make different themed dishes, some Asian-inspired dishes. A lot of like Thai curries happen with sautéing and just adding a different sauce to cook it in at the end. You can really season a sauté however you'd like to. Again, I'm going to start with some onion. Onions are great, and I have them from the market. And we'll start with that same onions at first, and then chopped up nice and fine, or to whatever preference you have. And again, these are just different methods that you might be able to use depending on what you have around. You know, if you only have potatoes, you can make a potato soup and you can mash them. If you have a lot of butternut squash or some other type of winter squash, you can roast those in the oven first, and then you can puree them with some vegetable broth and cook them as a soup. There's so many different ways that you can make a soup, and I'm just doing like a kind of a chunky soup. I could make a chili if I wanted to use all these tomatoes. I could chop them all up and make a more tomato-based soup and add some beans and even some meat or something if you wanted to make some kind of chili. So there's so many different things that you can do. I'm going to turn my cast iron skillet here onto a medium-high heat and add just a little bit of oil so that it's ready to cook. I'll let that warm up for a second before I add anything to it. And we will add in some zucchini. To this one I'll add in the summer squash. And cut this the long way. And I'll cut it again in the fourth so that I can get some nice small bite-sized pieces. Yum. A lot of you have probably done this before, but one of my favorite things my mom would always do when we had a lot of extra zucchini in our garden growing up, we would make zucchini chocolate cake and zucchini breads, and she would often grate the zucchini with a grater here, and just kind of save a lot if we had a lot of extra zucchini, because if you grow one zucchini plant, sometimes you'll get a lot of zucchini, and so we would just save them into little gallon or quart-sized Ziploc bags with 2 or 4 cups of zucchini, and then we would pull it out when we wanted to make some bread or a stir fry or whatever it may be that we were wanting to make with zucchini. We'd have it right there in the freezer available. So also today at the farmer's market, just another side comment, or yesterday when I went, I got a whole bunch of tomatoes. This was only some that I got, and they were seconds, and so they all have like maybe a little crack in them or a little blemish, and that's totally okay. They're still very edible, but they sold for half price, so I got a better deal on them, and I can just kind of cut those little blemishes off and throw them out for the compost, and still make a lot of stuff with tomatoes. I think I could use them for making tomato sauce. I could make a nice salsa or a pico de gallo. I could make any kind of tomato juice or a chili, like I said before. So take advantage of those kinds of things, and when you can buy extra, you can go ahead and save it, use it for later in the freezer or even dehydrator. And the pan here is nice and warmed up. We'll get those onions going. And then we'll start with the zucchini after that. Okay, so the onions are going good. I'm going to add in some of the other veggies that we've been cutting up here to our saute. These are cooking really nicely in the soup too, so I'm going to turn that down so it can just simmer and won't boil all the liquid off. And just make sure all of that gets nice and coated with the oil. Also, if you're trying to cut back on some fats, you don't have to use oil as much. You can use maybe just a little bit of oil and then mostly water, and you can more steam your vegetables, and that is totally good and works just as well. I have a couple of carrots and a few greens. to our saute as well. And these ends are just a little dark, so I'm going to take those off. And then same as before when I cut the carrots, just kind of be careful but go down the middle and cut them nice and small. If you ever go to like a Thai food restaurant and get like a nice curry dish, all of those veggies were sauteed up first before the sauce was added on, and sauteing is really just cooking in a skillet or a pan, and then with a little bit of oil, getting them nice and tender and cooked through. And then you can either leave it as is, or you can add a sauce or some spices to it. And this is kind of my go-to easiest dinner when I come home from a long day at work and I want to eat some vegetables, but I don't really want to think too much about what I'm making. I'll just chop up a few things, cook them in a skillet, and sort of decide what seasonings I want to put onto it, and that's really easy. Also, sometimes something really easy that you could do is saute up a few vegetables in the pan, and then go ahead and add a couple eggs to it if you eat eggs. And that will be a really easy way to get a bit of protein and some more nutrients as well. Add these carrots in. Something really fun that I like to do, especially with kids, you might try this if you have kids at home or even for your students in your classroom, is you can just take whatever vegetables you have and whatever you think might be good with eggs, which is probably most vegetables, and you can mix them all up, so you can kind of scramble the eggs, mix the veggies in, and pour a little bit of that mixture into an oiled muffin tin, and make a little, oopsies, lost some kale. Throw that in the compost. You can make a fun little frittata and cook that in the oven just for a few minutes until the egg cooks through, and then it's ready to eat. And that's kind of a fun way to add more vegetables into your diet. Easy little recipe. And the greens, when I cook them, are going to wilt down pretty significantly, so I'll just let those sit for a little bit. It won't take too long to cook the greens, and we'll let these other harder fruits or harder vegetables cook down a bit first. Okay. So while that's going, I can start to prepare a little bit of a sauce for my stir fry, and really I'm just going to kind of mix together a few seasonings that I really like and add that on. So I'm going to do some soy sauce first. I'm using a soy sauce called liquid aminos, and it kind of has a soy sauce flavor, but it doesn't have the gluten in it like soy sauces usually do, so I'll put a little bit of that in there. And I don't need too much, that will go a long way. I love spice, so I'm going to use this chili garlic sauce. Add that in there. And the soy sauce or liquid aminos is already pretty salty, so I don't really need to add any salt to that. But I am going to add a little bit of garlic powder, which I have here. I like to buy my spices in bulk and makes it a little bit cheaper. Add about a teaspoon of that. Okay, I'm going to add a little more oregano from my garden. Different herbs. You can just really put in whatever you like. What do you like? And just add it in. Okay, we've got lots of projects going on in here. Okay, the stuff in the skillet looks pretty good, so I am going to add in the kale so it'll start to cook down with it. And I can just kind of lay on top and it'll get a little bit wilty. Get this ready to dump in. This is a little preview for making salad dressings, which we'll do in a moment. For that cooking, I'm going to add a little bit of water to it so the sauce doesn't stick to the pan at all. Really simple seasoning. I think it's going to taste really good. Okay. Let that keep going. And our soup is looking pretty good. I'm going to keep it nice and low. Okay. All right, now for a salad after we keep at the roast. Oh yeah, the roast is looking really good. Fogging up my glasses a little bit. I'm going to just stir it around to make sure all the sides are getting coated evenly. And that will just probably need a couple more minutes and then we'll be ready to pull that out. So we'll get set up over here with a hot pad. Okay, salad time. We are going to make a kale salad, and this is kind of a super fun salad to make with kids too. You can use a lot of different kinds of greens, but I'm going to use kale because that is what we had at the market. Again, we already talked about how to de-stem kale, especially in a salad. You're not really going to want kale stems because they'll be real tough raw. They're better cooked. So I'm just using my hands here to show you that it can be done. We don't need knives always when we're working with fruits and vegetables, especially greens. They're really easy to tear, and this is a really fun thing to do with kiddos. So you can have everybody wash their hands, give everybody a stem of kale, have them all de-stem the kale, and tear it up into small little bits. And when you do use kale, especially kind of late in the season, how I am right now, the kale is a little bit tougher, and so it'll mean that you the kale kind of tastes better once it kind of gets massaged and squished around a little bit. So you can do a really easy massaged kale. We're going to make a dressing here in a second, and when you do this with kids, it's so easy to just throw it all into a gallon-sized Ziploc bag, and you can add some of the torn up kale in there, and then add some dressing in there, and then just have the kids squish it at it in the bag, and then no one's hands get all over it, and it's still a very tactile, fun experience, and the kale gets nice and tender after that. I'm just going to use my hands in here because it feels good, and it'll be nice and easy. So I've got a bowl of ripped up kale, and I'm going to make a quick little dressing. So when you make a dressing, you want to have something fat, something sour or acidic, something sweet if you want, and then something salty. And so there's lots of different things you could use for a fat. You can use, of course, different kinds of oils. You could use avocado. You could use, I thought I had it out here, tahini sauce. You could also, you could use a variety of things, coconut oil. And then for a salt, or something salty, you can use salt itself, or you can use like a soy sauce, just like I had talked about before. You can also use, for something sweet, you can use honey, you could use dried fruits or apples or something like that. You could also, or apple juice or apple sauce. You can also use sugar, but if you're trying to, again, cut down on the sugar, then keep that out. And then, what am I missing? Salt, sugar, fat, and acid. For the acid, you can use lemons, you can use apple cider vinegar or regular vinegar, balsamic vinegar. There's so many different options there. So just make sure you kind of get a balance of all of those things. I'm going to add some olive oil to mine just because it's already liquid, whereas the coconut oil is solid. And just a little, you don't need too much to coat all of that salad. I'm going to add a little bit of honey to mine. Those are some flavors I really like. Just scoop out some honey. And I don't want my dressing to be super sweet, but I am going to use the sweetness to my advantage. And I might add a few kind of fun things to the salad that I might not otherwise if it weren't a sweeter dressing. I am going to add a little bit of mustard as my acid, because mustard is kind of fermented with vinegar. So that'll be a fun addition there. A little bit of mustard, and not too much because I do want to add some apple cider vinegar also. So I'm going to add 2 acids. And I think hopefully so far I'm keeping an eye on my proportions and they're equal enough that I can add some of those different flavors in even if I'm mixing and matching. And I'll just do the salt since I'm using that soy sauce in my other recipe. I'm going to keep those flavors really different and kind of have some different taste for my palate. Alright, and then I'm just going to use a spoon here, but it would be super easy to grab a lid for your jar and just shake it up, and that's a fun thing to do with kiddos too. If you have the resources and can do kind of a salad dressing lesson with them when you're making a salad, it would be really fun to have them kind of get the chance to do a little salad dressing challenge and make their own dressings up using the different categories I mentioned, the fat, the salt, the acidic, and the sweet. And they could kind of pick and choose what they want in groups and decide together what kind of dressing they want to make. I'm going to pull out these vegetables in the oven. Alright, so they are nice and roasty. And we'll set them here to let them cool off a little bit. I'm going to just double check with my fork here that they are all, oh yeah, nice and cooked through. And this was just, you saw it was at 400 for 15, 20 minutes, and that was plenty. So it doesn't take too long to cook them all through. And our soup is going well, nice and low. Our sauté is going well. And that is about ready to be turned off too. We'll give it a few minutes. I turned it down so it didn't burn while we were distracted with other things, but it's looking good. Alright, so I'll take my mixed up dressing and I'll just kind of pour it over the top of the salad. And if I had added too many ingredients at first, then I probably would have overwhelmed the salad, but I think it's just the right amount. And I'm going to just get in there with my hands and squish it. So I'm really just squishing it like this, getting the juices in the kale leaf all activated and tender. And that's going to make it really, really delicious and easy to bite into. Make that dressing kind of incorporate into the leaf a little bit more. So, yum! This is looking good and smelling good. I probably should have tasted my dressing first before I poured it on, but I think I trust myself enough this time to know that it's probably going to be good. And even if it's not, I'll eat it. So, but if I was serving it to others, I would surely test it first. Okay, so that's good and massaged. You don't need to massage it too long, but just enough for it to feel kind of all tender. And again, super fun thing to do with the kiddos. Let's turn that one off so we don't forget about it. Okay, and on my salad, I'm going to make 2 separate bowls because I think it might be fun to add something kind of fun into one of them. So I'm going to pull this one aside. And we are going to add some slices of fresh tomato on top. This one I think is the prettiest that I'm going to use. And here we go. Just going to pull out that core. There are so many things to do with fresh tomatoes, and I didn't use them very much today, but I love when it's tomato season because it's such a treat. They're so sweet and juicy, and they taste so much better fresh than they do sometimes even in the store. So I'm going to just lay those out nice and pretty on top of the salad. Can really add whatever I want now. I'm going to do a little bit of this purple pepper just because I guess I'm into making it look really beautiful right now. So this is going to be a fun thing to add, just some little slices. Decorate it all up. Okay. And in this other salad, I wanted to add, just to kind of talk for a second about making a sweeter salad. So I have these fresh blueberries from the market, and so I'm going to add a few blueberries into it. And since I had that honey in the dressing, I think it'll really complement well with the blueberries. And I do have an apple, so I'm going to add in just a few little skinny slices of apple. I think that will kind of make those complement the blueberries well. Okay. And we are going to have a fun little salad. I can add, I really love adding nuts to my salad. I have some pumpkin seeds that I'll add, sunflower seeds. You could do walnuts or pecans, even like skinny little slivered almonds. Go crazy with your salad. You can do whatever you want. Okay, so got that nice and mixed up. That will be really fun to eat too. So we've got some salad. I wanted to talk quickly about slaws, which are basically the same thing as a salad. You just, you make a little dressing. Usually it's pretty vinegar based. A lot of times the slaw has mayonnaise in it, but you can use so many different things to get kind of a creamy vinegar based texture, and then you just grate up all of your ingredients. So you could use oftentimes cabbage and carrots are what's often used in the coleslaw, but you could use broccoli, you could use zucchini, you could use carrots. Even beets are really fun to add to a slaw. Just grate it up and mix it up with the dressing, and that is a really, really delicious way to get to eat vegetables too. All right, so we've got some salad. Set those to the side. The very last thing that I wanted to discuss was making a smoothie, which is a fun way to just make a super fast and easy vegetable and fruit-filled snack or meal. And today I'm going to make one that's maybe more of a breakfast version. And pull this blender over here. I love my blender. I use it all the time. It's really easy to make sauces in and soups if I want to do like a vegetable puree soup. Super, super easy. Of course, I'm going to add some greens into my smoothie, and I'm not going to tell you which order works best for a blender because every blender is so different. So mine usually does okay. I'm going to add in a little bit of liquid. I'm choosing to use cashew milk, which is a dairy-free milk alternative, but you can use whatever you like. I'm going to add some berries into it because I have them and they're good. And hopefully the berries bring enough sweetness, but you could also add a little bit of honey into yours if you preferred, but you wouldn't need too much of that. And I am going to add a banana to mine because I really like how a banana adds some good creaminess and also some sweetness too. Sometimes you could add in an avocado, you could add in cocoa powder or peanut butter, you could put any kind of frozen berries that you have around. I like to even put in some things like carrots and whatever I have, and sometimes it's more of a vegetable type smoothie. But here we go. We're gonna see what this is like. Put it all up. And I think I do need a little bit more frozen in there to sort of keep that texture good. So I have some frozen blueberries that I had frozen prior to this, so I'm going to add those in just to get a little more of an icy type texture. Okay. So that's looking really good. I'll get a cup to show you what it looks like. We are almost done. It's a nice, delicious smoothie. Great way to start off your morning. You want to make one of those? You saw how fast that took. Less than 5 minutes to make a really healthy and nutritious smoothie. Hopefully you've learned a lot of different methods today. I invite you to just get creative, to try some new things, and hopefully you will feel a little more comfortable to start adding some more fruits and vegetables into your diet and to really be free in your kitchen and try some new things. We just did some roasted vegetables, some soup, a stir fry or a saute, a salad, and a smoothie in all less than an hour, and even less than that. So, there's so much that you can do. Just take it step by step, and hopefully you'll start to have some more ideas and ways that you can incorporate those foods and to bring kids into the process as well. So, happy eating, and go ahead and take the quiz at the end of this module, and thank you for taking the time to watch this webinar today.